A Stream Deck, like the Stream Deck, but for feet.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And lay the gas into your stream.
Yeah. Speaking of things that sound like that, Steam Deck says they're officially shipping February 28th.
Cool.
Finally. Still no word on a definitive sale or release date for the Final Fantasy VI Pixel remaster.
Oh, they still haven't dropped a date on that? I haven't even been paying attention.
I think it just, well, I mean, they've narrowed it down to February.
Well, at least we do have news that they're selling Final Fantasy XIV again. As of like yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. They opened up a new Oceanic server for like Australians and stuff like that, which hopefully will take the load off the North American server because that's where most of them play. Even though technically they're physically closer to the Japanese server, but those servers are all in Japanese. So any English speakers obviously wanted to play on the North American servers, and no.
So is the new Oceanic server going to be in English? Or?
I think most of the servers have multiple languages, but I believe the default language for the data center is English. Like even the North American, the default is English, but like Japanese, French, and German are also options for like the cutscenes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming those are options on every single data center. But then you also have to assume who are the people you're talking to. So most of the other players in the Japanese data center will also be speaking Japanese. So unless you can type in Japanese and read it, you're not going to understand the people you're playing with. So I'm assuming most people in the Oceanic data center are going to be writing in English. So just being the major block is going to be Australia.
So have you logged in recently? Is the performance anything better? Or?
Well, I actually played the game last night, but by the time I got around to playing it, it was already like 10 o'clock, so I probably could have been playing close to that time anyway for the last couple of weeks, and I felt no difference.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But the restrictions are gone. If I wanted to load up and say, like, right now, I could. I'd probably be in queue for quite some time, but I could load up. They wouldn't boot me out of the line anymore for being a free player.
That's good.
I was going to buy the game like the second it was available, but currently I'm having hardware problems with things that are more important, so I'm not going to dump $60 on a game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, here's an article. Final Fantasy XIV's new Oceania server is free real estate for the best and worst usernames imaginable.
Yeah.
Meet my new bestie, Crotch Goblin.
It's also the race for who can get a house, because anytime they open up a new server or data center, that's like available real estate in the wards. First people who can grind up enough money to get them, just get houses.
Mm-hmm. Well, I learned last night, because yesterday was Australia Day. The happy belated Australia Day, by the way. There was a Michael Bancroft live stream where they were going through all of these lesser known, little known Australian sayings or phrases, I guess you could say.
Isn't Australia Day only like a couple decades old?
I guess.
It's a pretty new holiday from what I hear.
Yeah. But, yeah, I learned some interesting new Australian slang last night. Very, very interesting.
I still don't understand why everything in Australia wants to kill you. Like, it doesn't matter where in Australia. You could be, like, right off into the ocean, and they've even got, like, the deadliest sea creatures in the world, too. They've got, like, octopus that are, like, this big, and they've got these really bright blue rings on them that are tiny. They look like little Cheerios or whatever. And a single bite could, like, kill you within 30 minutes. And the problem is their bites they don't even tickle. You don't notice you're bitten. So basically, if you touch one and the underside touches your skin, you want to kind of just go and get medical attention regardless, because by the time you find out that you were bitten, it's probably too late. Now, the fatality rate is extremely low because people are aware of this ringed octopus. So they go and they get medical attention, like, immediately, and you could survive if they put you on, like, a respirator and stuff like that. But there's no cure for its venom. And you need medical attention, or else you're just dead. Yeah. Everything in Australia just wants you dead.
Bancroft was claiming there was only one kind of spider that they worry about, but I'm like, damn.
I'm sure.
I've heard of a lot.
You don't have to go in the ocean, so you don't have to worry about octopus if you don't go in the ocean.
Yeah. He was saying you just have to worry about the huntsman spiders, but I'm like, last time I was there, I ran into a pretty mean-looking wolf spider that was pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
And then they have those orb weavers that actually kill and eat birds.
Yeah.
So big.
Everything wants to kill you there.
Yeah.
Except for the koala, because they're just too incompetent to kill anything. I don't understand how koalas still exist.
Did you see there was like some article or something that said they're so dumb, if you put like eucalyptus on a plate, they won't eat it?
Yeah.
Because they don't know what it is.
They have smooth brains. They literally have smooth brains. Their brain structure doesn't even really look quite the same as ours. It's because it's more tilted upwards. So instead of having like a big brain with the stem at the bottom, the stem is kind of at the back, and it's like these narrower kind of like bulbs, and they're just a dumb, smooth-brained marsupial. Like, most marsupials are smarter than the koala. Like, I don't know what happened to them in the evolutionary line. It's probably because eucalyptus is basically a drug, so they're like the stoners of the animal kingdom, and their brain just smoothed out over many generations of them eating nothing but eucalyptus.
Fascinating.
They're like really funny. Their fucking screams sound like demons.
Yeah. I know, I've heard them mating. They're very loud.
And they're like constantly constipated because all they eat is eucalyptus. Like, how are these things still alive? I don't know. Anyway, welcome to the Vomitorium, episode 120. As always, I'm your host, Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer, not a koala, for sure. How you doing?
More along the lines of a wallaby, I think. I'm just fine. Fine and dandy.
Fine and dandy.
Had a full day of work. Full day of work today, as always. I need to take some days off in February. I'm supposed to take at least one day off every month, and I forgot to take a day off in January. So I'll have to take 2 in February.
Your boss is going to start yelling at you.
Yeah. She's had to remind me more than once. Just
like, listen, you've got policies here, man. You got to follow them.
That's true. They do. I mean, it's like you don't have to, but they really strongly encourage you to take at least a day off every month. So I'm like,
especially
okay, that's not a bad policy.
Guys that are used to working, you kind of have to tell them. Like, I forget to take breaks a lot. Even back when like I worked at a sub shop, I forgot to take breaks when I worked inside. I worked like a 10-hour shift, and they had to yell at me like 8 hours in, like, dude, you need to take a break. It was freaking policy. You have to take a break. Why are you working 8 hours straight? And I'm just like, whatever.
Yep. Oh shoot, I screwed up. There we go.
Yeah.
My Discord window got screwed up for a second there. All good?
All good.
So what else is new?
I don't know. Dude, so I hop into Final Fantasy 2. So it's like, oh, hey, everything should be fine. There should be a lot of players playing again. I should be able to get some stuff done. And then I just spent like 4 hours fishing.
Mark Kern, I blame you.
Yeah. You know what? Like, I have a friend who got me into playing Final Fantasy 11 again. He also plays 14 with me. And he just walked in and he saw me fishing. And he was like, why didn't you spend this time grinding in 11? I thought you loved that game. So I do love that game, but they never added fishing to Final Fantasy 11.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, speaking of Mark Kern and MMOs, I got this interesting email today.
Oh, is it about Ember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear about this?
I don't know. Probably. I get emails about Ember. I just haven't checked them in a while.
Yeah. Do you know this? Did you hear about this? Yeah, I got an email, and I had seen Mark Kern went and backed Cayman America. Cayman?
Oh, it's Common.
Cayman America. Common America.
Yep. Volume
5 is out on Kickstarter now. It's live, so go check it out if you're into Kickstarter.
Common meaning masked.
Oh, okay. Yes, yeah. Common America. It's
just like Common Writer. It's a masked writer.
In fact, it's an excellent comic book. I only have the first issue right here. There it is. It's all colorful.
With the big titty cover.
Oh yeah, there's the back. Oh, I didn't even notice that the back was all reflective too. But so yeah, I was like, oh, that's interesting that Mark Kern went and bought Common America. Well, then later today, I got an email that's from Ember, which is his little mech MMO. That says, live now, we're partnering with hit indie comic Common America.
That's cool. I did not hear about that.
Yeah, Common America, the hit indie comic by Timothy Lin, that Mark Pellegrini has partnered up with Ember, the upcoming Mech vs. Kaiju MMO, led by original WoW team lead Mark Kern in the game's first crossover event. Part 1 of the crossover event, get a 3D printable statue of an Ember-inspired version of Common America.
That's pretty cool. There's some things about Ember I like. The problem is, as far as an MMO goes, I'm personally just not really interested in a first-person shooter MMO. But what he's doing with it is really neat. I like how level and location aren't the ways that progress is being done in that game. It's basically time. So it's still kind of leveling, but the leveling progress is done by the amount of time that you spend in the game and the quality of the time that you spend in the game. So most MMOs, you have to, like, as you level, you have to go to other areas to do the higher level stuff and to unlock more things to progress through. In this one, instead of forcing you to move to another location, things start growing around you as a player. And I think that was a very interesting mentality to jump into it that you probably only get from somebody who's been working on MMOs for a long time and has unique perspective of the complaints that he's had with MMOs.
Yeah. Well, it says join us tomorrow, Thursday, the 27th of January, at 11 a.m. Pacific on Ember's Discord server to meet Common America creator Timothy Lim, art part of creative duo. Wait, I thought Pellegrini was doing the art. Isn't Timothy the writer?
No. Mark's a writer.
Oh,
get it backwards. Okay. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Well, the artist, Timothy Lim, is going to be on the Ember Discord server, which I am on, I believe, already.
Yeah, I'm in there.
So, yeah, check it out. em8er.com, I think is Ember's website. So.
Yes.
So, yeah, a little, let's see, that'll be 1 p.m., 1 in the afternoon, my Central Time, our time.
Yeah, they're pretty cool dudes. I've never talked to both of them at the same time. I don't know why. I've just never had them in the same call together. But I have talked to both Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini separately in different calls. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't look like Mark Pellegrini's going to be in there.
Yeah.
But Mark Kern will be. So.
But they're both cool dudes. As far as I know, Mark Kern's a cool dude too. I've watched several of his streams and stuff. Definitely very interesting insight when it comes to MMOs and RPGs and stuff because of the amount that he's worked on.
Yeah, I've watched his Ember streams on Twitch. So there you go.
Yeah, I know. In many ways, what was the name of the game? Was it like Firefall or whatever? Because he worked on another game that mechanically was similar to this one, but it kind of ended up in development hell due to the company that originally owned it. So he doesn't have like the trademark and copyright to go back and work on it. And this game is kind of like a spiritual successor to it, but also with the freedom to do the things that he couldn't do back then. So like the towering mechanic of being able to stack the mechs on top of each other was something from the previous game that he was able to bring back into this one.
Yeah, Firefall.
It was Firefall. Okay, I thought that was it.
From what he's said, seemed like it was going to be successful, but then apparently he was voted out as CEO by the board of directors for Red 5, and then after he left, it crashed and burned. So
yeah, typically that's what happens when you vote out the person with the actual direction and plans of what's going on.
Yeah. So I don't know the whole story there, but whenever I've seen people criticize him for Firefall, he's like, it was doing fine until they kicked me out of the company. So,
is what it sounds like. Yeah. And then it ended up in fucking production hell. They couldn't continue it. They dumped the game, and all the copyright and trademarks are held up with them. So he just had to go off and make his own new thing again.
Yeah. That's interesting. So he's been working on Ember since 2016, so for 6 years, and I think it's currently you can play it. It's not like officially been released, I guess, but
yeah, it's like it's what I would call active development. They call it early access. You could go onto the site, you can get a forum key and stuff. You can buy into it, and you can support it basically early access to play the game. From what I've seen, though, actually, this is kind of more early access than just active development. A lot of the builds look like very, very alpha build. Right? This doesn't even look like your beta testing. So I personally don't have a problem with early access in this case, but it is soon getting to the point. Well, I don't know. I haven't looked in a year. It might even be fully playable, especially if they're doing a Common America crossover now. A year ago, it looked more alpha.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some more recent, what look like more recent builds where he's been playing on his Twitch channel, and he's showed off some new graphics and stuff like that. So it looks pretty good.
Yeah, definitely looks like a strong game. Not one that mechanically I'm really interested in playing, but it looks like a strong game for what it is. Like I recommend it to people who are interested in that kind of thing. especially people who really enjoyed stuff like Anthem or like Destiny or whatever. That was like their jig, but they wanted more of an MMO and not this like looter shooter type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just not into MMOs anymore, I don't think.
Yeah. I like MMOs, but I don't know. They are definitely more fun with people to play with, and it is hard to get people to play with. So then you're reliant on like grouping up with randos, which can be fun. I actually love playing with random people. You can make good friends that way. But when you're a busy person, like it's hard enough making friends in real life. You want to spend time trying to make friends in a game when you got other things to do?
Yeah.
Especially guilds. Trying to get inducted into a guild. Especially everybody there already knows each other. Now you have to like work your way into a new social system. Like, I don't know, man. I think I'm over that.
Yeah. The last time I did something like that, it was with a mobile Transformers game. And it went fine. And yeah, it was like this game where you have to basically build a guild up, and you do these missions, daily missions, and you're kind of going up against these other guilds, and depending on how well you do, you get, more and more, whatever,
like rewards,
prizes.
Yeah. That's how most mobile games are. Yeah, they try to get you into like these little faction wars and stuff. Yeah,
and we were actually doing pretty well. We were running with this was, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. We were running with some of the top, because I think it was called Forged to Fight, Transformers Forged to Fight.
Yeah.
And Peach and I actually got into it like right when the game released, and we ended up creating, between the two of us and a bunch of other people, we actually brought a bunch of people into our guild, and we're one of the top guilds for like, I don't know, 6 months of the first 6 months of the game, like the top guilds in the world. I don't know if we were ever like number one, but we were like occasionally 2 or 3 or 4 every week. And then, it was like, well, I kind of want to take a week off.
And you can't.
But it's like,
if you want to stay at the top of the game like that, yeah.
And like people started leaving the guild, and we were like, oh, well, fuck. Some of our top people would like leave and go to other rival guilds and stuff. And it was like, I just wanted to take a day off, man. I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I had that problem. Because I think there's, especially with these mobile games, it really isn't that impressive to be like a top guild in a mobile game. But when it's the one you're playing, it still feels good. So like,
and especially when you're first, when you start the game, like when the game first releases, it's real easy.
Oh yeah,
you just have to be diligent.
Yeah,
right. And we were pretty good for several months, but then it's just like, oh, let's keep up with it.
I had, I think, one of the top guilds in one of the legacy servers for League of Angels Fire Raiders, which was the mobile version of that game. And it's like, I was looking at the other ones. It really was not hard to be a top guild in that game, right? Like, that's how those games work. But yeah, it's all about diligence. And all of a sudden, like, half of my guild left to go to like, the other one. And it was like basically 2 of the guilds, they dropped off and then formed together to make a bigger guild. And they became the first guild. And then I was just like, I don't care anymore.
It's like sometimes people would just leave for no reason. I mean, they would leave because basically other guilds were poaching them.
Yeah,
like other guilds.
It's not like an MMO, right? So in an MMO, you actually kind of build a personal connection with the people in your guild. In these crappy little mobile games, there's like a guild chat. You could talk to people. The few people that I talk to are the ones that stay in there.
That's what we did.
Yeah, but most people in the guilds don't talk, right? Like you have like a good strong.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you have like a good strong maybe 10 people who talk, and then the rest of the people are just like silent members of the guild. Those are the people that will leave and get poached.
Yeah. But then occasionally, people that we were talking to every day would just like, I don't know, they'd get pissed off about something, and then they'd get an offer from another guild, and they'd leave, and it'd be like, oh, well, that guy, I thought he was my friend. And it was like, oh, well.
But that's also like the nature of these things being highly competitive mobile games that need your attention at all times.
And then and we'd go to other guilds and like try and chat people up and be like, come over here. It's kind of, it's kind of fun, but it's kind of like a lot of backstabbing.
Scummy, very scummy.
Yeah.
See, I've never had that problem in MMO though, because like I don't know, I think there's something about like your avatar represents you, like you're playing a character in the world, that the relationships are a little sturdier, because on some level you start feeling for your character's relationships with these people, and you don't want them to backstab their friends, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's a bit more personal then. But anyway,
but I can't even be in a guild in Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, because you have to
be a paid player to be in a free company. Yeah. I actually have like 3 different people that want me to be in their free company. They added me as a friend. They're just like, whenever you become a paid player.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm like, shit, I've got several people that want me to be in their different companies. Fuck. What am I gonna do?
Yeah. I still can't, can't devote enough time to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, I was in a WoW guild, but I was never really that big of a participant. But at least I contributed to the guild bank and stuff like that. It's helpful to be able to have some people that would share, materials and stuff that you need.
Oh, I was always active in like any guild or company that I was in like any MMO. That like if there was a new person jumped in and like, man, I need help running this thing, I'd be like the first person jump on, like, let's go fucking do it. I've done this thing like 100 times. Easy, let's go.
Yeah. Phasmagore says must buy Black Poke Chocobo.
So one of my friends that I play fucking Final Fantasy and stuff with, she loves crows and stuff, so she wants a black chocobo. But the problem is you have to have a house to dye your chocobo, because you have to feed it like certain food to change its color. And being in a free company is like the easiest way to get a house. Or I don't think you personally need a house, but a free company would be it, because you need access to chocobo stables, which are in residencies. So like at a house or a guild, like a free company house. You also need access to chocobo stables to get it higher than rank 10. So my chocobo is basically at a level cap, and I have to feed it a certain onion to be able to reset it so I can get it to rank 20.
Yeah.
They're mean to free players. Like I really can't complain. They let you play 2 whole expansions for free. In some ways, it's the best free trial for any subscription-based MMO. But also at the same time, the restrictions they put on this trial are literally the worst restrictions you can put on anybody in a trial form. Like at least WoW, while you're limited to level 20, you can still join parties with people, right? Or like you can form a party. You don't have to just be invited to it and shit like that. Like, I don't know. Some of the restrictions that Final Fantasy 14 has are just fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy the game. The fishing's fun. So like, I was actually complaining about this the other day with my brother. He was in the same room as me, also plays the game. And I love the fishing in that game because for the most part, it is the most simple fishing in the whole fucking world. You cast the line, you sit there, you wait, it gives you a little exclamation mark above your head, you pull the line back in. Relaxing, you just sit there and do it for hours. The typical way you expect fishing to work in an MMO. I hate how complicated fishing gets in some games.
That sounds even more interesting than WoW fishing, because in that it's just like the bobber just like goes like that when it's time to reel it in. It's like there's no exclamation point above your head or anything.
And they'll give you different ones too. If it's like a rare fish, you'll get like 2 exclamation points, or even 3 if it's like a super rare fish. And which means you also know how important the one you missed was when your like rating was too low and it says the fish got away. And you're like, shit, that was the triple. It was the triple.
Asmogor says, "I just want my crow, bro."
Yeah.
What do you think about fishing mini games? Like, well, you never played Fantasy Life, did you?
No, I did not.
It was interestingly in Fantasy Life, you choose a profession, and the goal is to actually max out all your professions. I think there's I think there's 12 different professions, and one of them's fishing, and so it's not, since it's a whole separate profession on the same level as warrior or wizard or whatever. There's a whole fishing mini game strategy shit thing. I mean, so it's complicated how you have to catch fish, and then of course there's Animal Crossing has a fishing mini game.
Yeah.
Stardew Valley.
So here's my opinion on fishing, right?
Less interesting.
It needs to either be the most relaxing and simple thing in the world, or it needs to have the right level of complexity to keep it engaging, right? So one of my, I hated it at first. I went back and I replayed some. I actually really like the fishing in Final Fantasy 15, right? Because it's actually really engaging once you get into it. I hate the fishing in Stardew Valley. I think it can go fuck itself. But I love the fishing in Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing, it's super simple and relaxing.
You just have to be 15. A little fast.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 15, super engaging. There's actually this really fun Street Pass fishing game for the 3DS. It's one of the DLC Street Pass Plaza games. That one I liked. It was the right level of engaging. And it had to be because literally the whole game is fishing. Like these Bass Pro Fisher games, they're fine. Stardew Valley's like in this weird middle ground of just annoying enough to piss me off.
You know what the key is to the Stardew Valley fishing minigame?
What?
The skip the Stardew Valley fishing minigame mod.
Yes. The one that turns it into a simple, relaxing...
Yeah. It turns it into, you caught fish every single time.
Ocarina of Time, that fishing's actually pretty good. Because it's like the earliest form of like engaging fishing. Because you actually have to do like the skipper and the pull and the reel in and stuff like that. I'm fine with that.
I found the Twilight Princess fishing to be a bit annoying. I couldn't really figure it out.
I don't know if I spent enough time in the game to really get into that. You know how much I don't like Twilight Princess.
Yeah. It's just kind of dumb.
Yeah.
I couldn't really figure out, like, just the way the camera is. I couldn't figure out where the bobber was. Like, the fish has to go off the screen. It comes, like, towards you and disappears before it grabs your bobber. And it's like, what the hell? When do I pull? I don't know. I
can't fucking see what I'm doing.
I know. It's just because of a terrible camera angle.
Yeah. Oh. But at least the water looked really good for its time, and you could actually see Link's hair dry. That was the most important part of that whole game.
Yeah, it's a shame there's no fishing in Breath of the Wild.
I know.
Well, I mean,
Dynamite
sort of
fishing.
was. Yeah, you throw a bomb in the water and then get the fish. That's
my favorite form of fishing is dynamite.
Yeah. That works.
Or, I mean, you can also just jump in and catch the fish while you're swimming. But
or you can shoot them with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, it's just man.
Or use bomb arrows. Yeah. Exactly. There's just no fishing poles. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll add that. Maybe that's what's taking so goddamn long in Breath of the Wild 2.
But I was so into the relaxation of fishing in 14 that I went up like 10 levels in that session of fishing. Because fishing is a profession of its own in 14.
Yeah.
And it's basically its own game. So people, my brother was breaking this down too. There's 4 different games in Final Fantasy 14. There's the actual main game, which the combat related game, which is like the dungeons and the raids and all that, the story. Then there's like crafting and harvesting. as its own kind of game. But then there's fishing, which you think should be part of crafting and harvesting, and technically it is. But there's so much to the fishing log and the different fishing holes and locations and stuff that it's basically its own game with its own rules and everything, including mooching is in there, you know, where you leave a fish on the line to catch another fish. And there's certain fish that you can only get from mooching, but you can only mooch large, like high quality fish. So you're sitting here forever waiting until you get a high quality version of a fish for you to leave on the line to catch another bigger fish. It's very complicated, and you think, okay, it's just fishing. No, at like level 30 or 35 or whatever, you unlock dune fishing, where you can cast your line into sand dunes. And then at like 45, you unlock sky fishing. And at like 53, you unlock lava fishing.
This is just like fantasy life.
Yes, it is his own vocation. You're just spending all your time fishing once you get into it.
In fantasy life, you fish in sand eventually, and lava, and the sky, and all kinds of interesting
its own thing. And then there's fashion. That's the real end. Is the fashion.
Phasmagore says Breath of the Wild fishing is the best because you just grab.
Yeah. See, Fishozo's saying, I realized a major problem with making an Aquaman game, which I have no idea where that came from, I guess talking about water, is the villains. Why would there be fish in lava? Because it's a fantasy RPG with anime logic. I mean...
Where else are you going to catch lava eels?
Yeah.
Obviously.
The thing I hate about the fishing, though, so the one thing I really hate about the fishing is cooking as a job doesn't directly benefit fishing. Like, you need to fish to get certain ingredients, but all cooking is based on recipes. So you can't just, like, start up a fire and cook whatever fish you get over fire and just have a cooked fish. And that's just really frustrating to me.
You can in WoW.
Yeah, I know. And in RuneScape, you can just literally cook anything over an open fire once your cooking skill is high enough for that thing. But all the cooking in 14 is based on recipes. So if the recipe doesn't specifically call for that fish and rock salt, or like you have to go and get all this shit, and you might even have fish that are useless for most things, right? And it's just like, oh, God, I just want to cook this thing over a fire and eat it.
Well, I take it back. WoW, you do have to kind of have the recipe. So if you get a fish that you don't know how to cook yet, you can't do anything with it.
Yeah, you probably don't have to cook lava eels.
Yeah. Probably not.
You got to chill them. That's how you prepare a lava eel.
Mm-hmm. So fashion is the final mini game or the final game?
Yes, that's the final game, the end game of Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Is Fashion Fantasy 14.
Does that incorporate cat girls and
everything?
All that.
I look like a chocobo right now.
Cool.
Just a little tiny chocobo riding a bigger chocobo.
Well, you know, I recently found out in Final Fantasy 14 when you wear the Moogle suit, when you have what's his name, the old guy, Realm's grandfather. What's his name?
Final Fantasy
Strago?
6. Strago.
Final Fantasy 6, yeah. Is that it? Strago?
Yes.
Is Strago the one that wears the Moogle suit? That he looks like a Moogle all the time.
Yeah. Strago's the lore master who's they call him a sage, but he's like weirdly between a sage and a blue mage. There's two sort of blue mage characters in that game. There's him and there's Gao, but I think Gao just like works completely differently than how a blue mage normally works. You just leave him on the veldt for a while. He's kind of his own thing.
Lalafell.
Oh yeah, we have a whole group of us that we all play Lalafells. We're the little people.
Have you seen? There's a famous WoW player who started playing Final Fantasy 14 as a Lalafell. Yeah, Pint.
I'm familiar with Pint. He held his entire free company hostage just to be able to buy a house. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was this one sicko in his company who was on for like 14 hours straight, and he's just like, this person's a psychopath. You need to watch out for her. Just standing there for 14 hours waiting to buy the thing. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, Pint's cool.
I guess played as a gnome.
Yes,
in WoW.
in WoW, and then became a Lalafell. Basically, because like Pint was known, I think, somewhat for being like an RPer, like playing the character for what who she was.
Yeah.
And just carried the character over to frickin' 14 as a Lalafell instead of a gnome.
Yeah.
Or a halfling or whatever it was. I think it was a gnome, because Pint was really fucking small.
Yeah. A girl.
Yeah.
Mr. says, would you play as a Smurf in Warcraft? I don't think there's a Smurf race.
Yeah, I don't even think you could take the gnome and turn it blue. Like, skin palettes are very limited in Warcraft.
Yeah. I think there's blue, maybe blue orcs, and possibly one of the
I think the cow people
dragon,
can be
like-
blue.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Tarns.
Yeah, or what's the other one? The weird kind of like the ones with the horns. They can be blue.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Some of
yeah.
the D or whatever. You know,
The Draenei.
The Draenei, yeah, they can be blue.
Yeah, they can definitely be blue. But I was thinking, wait, what are the other? Why am I not finding? Oh, trolls. I think trolls can be blue, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't
Speaking
think
of short people, that was one of the things I want to talk about. We've got a very unhappy dwarf today, or in these last few days. You heard about it.
He's an angry elf.
A very angry elf. Yeah. Peter Dinklage is upset with Disney on their approach to Snow White. Apparently, I think this entire situation is laughable. In like,
is he even in the movie?
Degree. I don't think so.
He's just butt out, asshole.
Yeah, he's just been one of those guys. He's actually been on this for years, believe it or not, which I think is very hypocritical with how much of his career is built on playing stereotypical dwarf characters. But he's been on a soapbox for years about the imagery of specifically dwarves. He uses the word dwarf to refer to himself. He doesn't use like little person or whatever, which there's a difference between like midgets and dwarfs, like community wise, apparently. I don't know. Some people prefer different words. There actually are some people that prefer little people. Some people find it very degrading because it's like children are little people. But he's not happy with the depiction of the dwarves in this old story called Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. That's not the thing I'm particularly not happy with when it comes to this movie. Maybe the fact that it's called Snow White, which is a story about like the fairest person in fiction, and you're casting a rather tan person to play Snow White. But he does understand that the dwarves in Snow White and the Seven Dwarves aren't like people with
human.
dwarfism, right? They're mythological dwarves. They're like gnomes. That you could literally
like
call this Snow White and the Seven Gnomes. In fact, I think an earlier version of the story refers to them as gnomes if you go far enough back.
Yeah, they're not humans. They're mythological creatures. That actually, they come to think of it, at least in the Disney depiction, they look more like gnomes than dwarves. At least they don't look like D&D dwarves.
But part of what's upset is that he is mad that Disney is using CGI instead of midgets, as Fish Chozo pulls up. But they're not midgets. They're not dwarves in this sense. Using CGI to depict them as mythological dwarves is actually more accurate to the story.
Is he mad that they used CGI to do a dragon in in The Hobbit? I mean,
I have no fucking clue there.
Or to do 10 or 12-foot trolls, that those are all CGI. Why didn't they use, an 8-foot giant person?
Who knows, man? Peter Dinklage has been on some weird crack for a while. Ever since fucking Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he's a lol cow.
But the character he played in Game of Thrones was actually fitting because that was literally a person with dwarfism. He came from actual human parents. So, like, that was, perfectly fitting for him.
Not to mention, Peter Dinklage doesn't look anything. They didn't even try to make him look anything like the character in the books.
Oh, no.
Because, I mean, I can imagine it would have been a pain in the ass to do the makeup for it every day. But basically, his nose was cut off in the first book, or the second book. I don't remember which.
Didn't he also have, a slight hump, too? Like, he was a deformed person from his birth. Yeah.
Yeah. But basically, in that battle, in the TV show, he got just sliced and then he had a scar. But in the book, he had, no nose. It got chopped off. And he looked... the description in the book, he looked horribly disfigured.
Yeah, before and even worse after.
Yeah. No, we're going to have handsome Peter Dinklage.
Which that guy can't complain.
Portray.
I understand dwarfism. Genetically, that is not winning the lottery. But also, as far as you could go with dwarfism, the dude actually is fairly handsome. Like, he could have been in worse states in his life. This is why he's able to even have an acting career. He's got a nice voice. He's talented. He's learned how to use what he's got. Like, he's got the best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
So much so that it's not even a bad situation for him anymore. The dude's kind of rich.
Oh, yeah. Kind of. I'm sure. Well, and he was in that X-Men movie.
Yeah. Just in fucking, what was it? Infinity War, playing a giant dwarf.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. I wonder if in real life he's kind of like the character from Elf. Where he's just, angry all the time.
I want to imagine he's, halfway between that and frickin' Tyrion. I want to imagine that he's more pleasant to be around when he's drunk. But he's probably sober too often for his own good.
Yeah, I get the feeling he's just an asshole.
Yeah.
Just have that feeling.
Probably.
Especially based on this stupid story. Yeah, if you're going to be mad about something about Snow White, be mad about the fact that she's not freaking white.
Yeah.
That's her name.
And neither is the queen. Which, the queen shouldn't be as white as Snow White. That's the point. But the fact is there's supposed to be a competition for who's the fairest in the land, right? She thinks that's her until something's pointed out. So you'd think she'd be pretty fair herself.
Yeah.
And it's, Gal Gadot's not the worst, but she,
is she the witch?
Not the best. Yes, the evil witches are going to be played by Gal Gadot.
Oh, I like her.
I do like her.
She's the only... She's one of the few nice people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
From what I can tell. Normal people. Probably because she was in the Israeli army, so she... she actually has some experience.
And she runs a business.
Person.
Yeah. She kind of understands how the world works for the most part. A lot of people in Hollywood, they're just kind of isolated from the actual workings of the world.
Yeah. Have you seen, you probably didn't see it, I might have forgotten to retweet it. There's a funny tweet today where it showed Wonder Woman, Superman, it was in a comic strip, and Batman, and they all hold the lasso of truth, and they're going to say they're going to say what their names are.
Yeah.
And Diana says, I'm Diana, whatever, Amazon of Themyscira. And Superman says, I'm Kal-El, or I says, I'm Clark Kent or Kal-El.
Yeah.
Batman goes, I'm Batman.
Well, the problem is they've deranged Batman so much as a character. Yeah. I mean, even as late as the 80s, you could have said this, to where in his own head, he is more Batman than he is Bruce Wayne.
Exactly, yeah. I like that, though. It made him kind of based.
Yeah.
He's like, he is 100% wholeheartedly Batman.
It's like, I remember, which this is technically, I think they call it the Timverse or whatever, Bruce Timm, right? Batman Beyond, there was a point where somebody had gotten, like, a radio feed into Bruce's head, so they were talking to him. And Terry asked him, like, how did you know you weren't just going crazy with that voice talking to you? And he's like, because in my head, I don't call myself Bruce.
Yeah. Interesting. It was calling him Bruce?
Yeah, and he refers to himself as Batman when he's talking internally. That's how he knew that it was a voice talking to him and not, like, his actual, like, internal voice. And he's like, that's not who you are anymore. Try telling that to myself. Batman Beyond was a great show. I wish that was actually like I don't think Pattinson should play Bruce Wayne. I would not have minded him as playing Terry McGinnis, though. I thought, especially if you brought in Keaton as Old Man Bruce, they could have made a Batman Beyond movie and it would have been great.
Yeah, that would have been. They made Pattinson all grizzled, though, so.
Yeah, hopefully it works out. I saw there was some pushback today, too, from the director, because a lot of people were still complaining. And even he said he wasn't going to work out for the role at first, but I heard he changed his mind because of the pushback. He actually is doing some workouts and stuff.
Oh,
You're an actor. You should be preparing for whatever role you're doing. And if you're playing a very active character, being in shape is part of the role. You should probably work out for the role.
You would think.
Yeah. It's the same as, like, reading the script before going in. I mean, you do what you need to do to prepare for any role. If you're trying to get a job in welding, you should go out and probably get, like, a welding certificate or at least get the basic knowledge of knowing how to weld before doing it.
Yeah. I mean, look at Christian Bale. He's...
Oh, dude, that guy got
amazing.
Built before Batman. Did you see the transformation between, like, the previous movie and then that?
Yeah, well, he was in that movie, The Machinist, or something like that. He was in some movie where he was, like, emaciated. Yeah. Like, that can't be healthy, but still, it's like, you gotta...
And then he went to Batman.
Dedication. Yeah.
It was like a night and day difference.
He must have had a lot of protein shakes or something. Yeah. It was amazing.
And I don't think Batman should be, like, a super built character. I'm not a fan necessarily of the design of, like, say, the Frank Miller Batman. But he should probably be cut, like maybe even have, like, an Olympic swimmer's build or something like that. There should be muscle. It's just, he's an acrobat. He should be moving around. He should probably be kind of slender, but he should definitely be carved at the same time.
And if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to work out until you fit the part, then you shouldn't take the part.
Just give it to somebody else.
So
Christian Bale probably has the same metamorphosis chamber, probably.
Yeah. Seems like it.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to Hugh Jackman. For a while there, he kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger for every time he played Wolverine. I was like, holy crap, he's going to, like, explode.
He was already too big to be Wolverine.
Yeah, I know. And he just kept working out, I guess. And, like, every movie, he was more and more muscular. It's like, oh, my God.
That was one of the things I hated. Like, I like Hugh Jackman. The character he played was great. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy his Wolverine. But he wasn't Wolverine. Wolverine is like this 5'3", barrel-chested, hairy man.
Yeah.
And that's even part of the name. The reason he's Wolverine is because Wolverines are small but, like, ferocious.
Who could they have gotten to play him?
Honestly, probably a lot of people, because there's a lot of 5'3" hairy people that exist. I'm sure even ones that are trying to get roles in Hollywood. But that's not the type of people that they want to cast for roles in Hollywood. Instead of getting somebody who fits the character, they want to get freaking like 5'10" Hugh Jackman, oil him up, shave his fucking chest.
Yeah.
Closest thing to looking like Wolverine they get is the freaking mutton chops.
Yeah. I thought he did a great job for it.
Oh, again, for the character he did, it was great. I really enjoy it. I'm not complaining about that. It just... It wasn't Logan.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my complaints for what's his name? Heath Ledger's Joker. Amazing character. For the role that he played, it was like astounding. Not really quite the Joker. In fact, and some of his actions and stuff fit like an amalgam of a few of Batman's villains that fit in that like area, like the Mad Hatter and stuff like that. But he really wasn't quite the Joker. Still, 10 out of 10 role.
Yeah. You all right?
Yes.
Disappeared.
Bend over to reach another drink.
Don't you know you're supposed
an empty can?
Don't you know you're supposed to be boycotting Pepsi?
Probably, but I don't know why. I'm sure. I mean, knowing Pepsi, they've done a lot of really dumb fucking shit. So
yeah, there were dueling. Another interesting story, by the way. Here's my Pepsi can. Dueling boycotts yesterday that I'm sure went nowhere. Because, I mean, I don't think anybody even remembers today. But, yeah, there was a dueling hashtags on Twitter, boycott Pepsi and boycott Walmart. And because apparently there was a Walmart in Canada that's enforcing mask mandates. But it was like, or maybe it was vaccination mandates or something like that. But it was like, it's because it was the law in the particular province that they're in.
Yeah, it's not like they have a choice on this if they want to operate in the province.
I mean, boycott Canada all you like, but it's like I can't blame a company for following the law that they're required to follow.
Yeah.
But whatever. So some people were saying boycott Walmart, and then apparently the equally stupid boycott Pepsi was because somebody found out that they contributed money to Republicans or something like that. And I'm like, they're a humongous corporation. They contribute to everyone. They contribute to Republicans, Democrats. Basically, they want to have. I know they want to have somebody in Washington, no matter who gets elected. So,
I don't think people realize how big Pepsi is. Pepsi is one of like 6 or 8 corporations that own all of food. They're a direct competitor to Coke. If you actually look at it, they are almost as big as Nestle or Kellogg. Like, they are a huge, PepsiCo, huge fucking company.
Yeah. And I'm sure they contribute to everyone because they need to.
Boycott Pepsi if you wanted to.
Yeah. But apparently left-wingers were mad at Pepsi and right-wingers were mad at Walmart. And so they had a... Which is kind of ironic because like a year ago, you'd think it'd be the opposite. Isn't Walmart the right-wing company and Pepsi was the left-wing company that did something lefty? I don't remember what.
Well, I mean, the truth is neither of these companies are really left or right-wing. They're all super corporatist, and that's why they throw a little money to everyone. It's just whatever helps their pocket at the end of the day.
Yeah, and they don't fight back against laws because they just follow the laws and just do their thing.
And they'll lobby whoever they can for whatever law that just benefits them the most. And if the thing about like the vaccine thing in that Canadian province is the fact that at the end of the day, that's not a law that affects them, which is why they just follow it. If it was something that actually they thought would affect their bottom line, they personally would tell them to shove it, pay any fine during the time, and then lobby to where that law's not going to exist in the future. That is basically how these companies operate. If you see these huge companies following a law, it's because they know it's not going to hurt them to follow it.
Yeah. So I thought it was incredibly stupid that the dueling left-right boycotts of very oddly the opposite companies that you'd expect.
Yeah.
But whatever.
That's
And
why I don't
like I
do
said,
boycotts, because there's not really boycotts anyway when you really think
nobody's
about it.
boycotting shit. Yeah, nobody's boycotting shit. They're not going to even. Nobody even remembers. Like, if you ask someone on Twitter, "Hey, do you remember what we were supposed to boycott yesterday?" I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" Who knows?
Yeah, I don't even
That's why,
think individuals can participate in a boycott, really, right? Because to really do a boycott, which usually that's on the administrative level, like you can boycott something coming in and out of your country or whatever, but you could do it on a community level. If you and everyone in your city decided you were going to boycott something, you could do that. But individuals really can't boycott; only communities can.
You'd have to. It would have to be on. It would have to be a major news story for several weeks. To actually have an effect on anybody's bottom line. Like a hashtag on Twitter is not going to cut it, because Twitter, the people who are active on Twitter is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the population. So no one even knows it exists. What do they say? Like 90% of the interactions on Twitter come from 10% of the users.
Oh yeah. You know, most people don't even like. They just scroll the feed. I was watching, I think it was like Timcast IRL or whatever, and they had Andrew Torba from Gab on. He was breaking down the like statistics, and it's like it's 1% of people actively post, 9% interact with posts, whether it's like replying or liking and stuff, and then the rest of the 90% are mostly people who just browse like it's their news source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Fuzz Choser says the only time boycott actually happened was with Coca-Cola back in the 80s, and that would have been essentially a coordinated media boycott, right? I mean, that's the only way you could get the word out, is if all the media has this as their top story for weeks and weeks until they get people to boycott.
And that's a real boycott by definition, right? That's, you know. Or actually, there was a boycott on Pepsi at one point in time, through media organization, because Pepsi decided they were going to be the first drink back into the Soviet Union, and they started doing a deal with it. This actually led to the same thing of Pepsi being the 6th largest naval superpower technically at one point in time, because Russia paid them in vessels. They really weren't ever technically a naval superpower, because they didn't do anything with the vessels. They even immediately like sold them back like to the US or whatever for good graces. But they were paid in vessels, so technically they were the 6th largest naval superpower. But due to that time, Coca-Cola was able to sell it as the all-American drink, the only drink that doesn't sell to communists. And there was kind of an actual media boycott of Pepsi until the whole like Soviet Union thing backfired on them. They didn't even have enough bottles. They were selling them whiskey bottles so they could bottle Pepsi there and stuff like that. I remember that. They didn't even have enough, and that's why they had to start trading them in like vessels and shit like that.
Yeah, I remember hearing stories about that. I wonder if the Coca-Cola thing had to do with like South Africa or something. I don't remember.
I actually don't remember what the 80s Coca-Cola boycott was over. I remember that it happened, but
probably had something to do with Africa.
Yeah,
it seems like it's just probably some BS media narrative. But I was going to say something about that or boycotting. Or I can't remember. Oh, yeah, I know what I was going to say. When they found out that Scott Cawthon, the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, had donated to Republicans, if he had just shut his fucking mouth and said nothing and just disappeared for a week or two, everyone would have forgotten about it. Nothing would have happened.
Yeah, that's true.
Stupidly,
I honestly though, I still loved his response, because it was like the most polite way ever of saying "fuck off." Or
he did say, or if he had just if he had said that, but then
it was the flavor change in the 80s. Okay, that's what caused it. Such a petty reason for a boycott too.
Oh, because of New Coke. Yeah, nobody liked New Coke. It's disgusting. Or if he had just said basically the same thing, but like without the all resign bullshit. Like maybe he wanted to resign. I don't know. It's up to him. He's still a multimillionaire, but like he didn't have
money off of it anyway.
He could have made his whole statement up to and including the part where he's like, we have the freedom to donate to whoever we want.
I'm gonna tell you the real
just been
secret.
like, and that's that.
I'm gonna tell you the real secret. He was getting out at the right time because he knew the next game was gonna be utter trash. Like, listen, it is a walking simulator. The security breach or whatever, the recent one where you hop inside the Freddy suit. And it literally doesn't take any of your energy. It is a walking simulator. Markiplier, who basically, he kind of got big off of playing horror games like this. It was the Slender Man stuff originally, but even Five Nights at Freddy's, he was playing the security breach, and he actually called it boring. It's the first time he called like a FNAF game boring. I think Gotham was using that as an excuse to get out while the getting was good.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have just been a convenient excuse to be like, I don't really want to do this anymore. Because, I mean, he still owns it. He still makes millions.
But now people aren't going to mentally associate his name with the new game because they think he's out, So it's just like,
Probably. I saw someone complaining about the fact that, I guess because Security Breach came out and they're like, but Scott Kaufman still, or Coffin, whatever his name is, still owns it. And I was like, yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're stupid if you don't realize that.
Let's also be fair. The Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, none of the games are particularly good, or I want to say good. They're not great. None of them are particularly great, but they're at least, the older ones are engaging. They're kind of like stress simulators. How can you resource management? How good can you keep your cool? And for that, they're pretty good at that. They're engaging for it.
I need to turn on the heat. It gets really warm in here sometimes.
Yeah, you can never get comfortable. It's either too warm or too cold.
I know, it's weird. It's like the heat comes on and then it just stays on for ridiculous, until it's so hot. I'm sweating.
But I think that's what the new game kind of fails to do. It doesn't actively force you to manage your stress because you can literally just stand perfectly still in the suit for as long as you want. There no energy gets taken off or anything. There really should be like a calorie. What would have made the system good is if you had like a calorie counter because you were you were exerting yourself for too long and you had to eat like energy bars that maybe were like scattered throughout the place. And part of it is you had to be sneaky to even get the energy bar because obviously if the animatronics saw you eating, they would know that you aren't another one. That could have made the game fun. And if you go too long without eating, you just collapse and then obviously the animatronic walks over and like that is clearly not one of us. Like you could have still made the game engaging in a way like that.
Well, the energy goes down if you move, though, right? So you have to.
Yeah, but
you have to recharge
stay still forever, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you move, it goes down. You have to find a recharging station.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
But it would have been cooler. Is like instead of using a recharging station, it should have just been like the human is powering this. Like you moving is and it's exerting a lot of energy. So then you have to eat. And even just standing still could use less energy, but your calories go down. Like that would have been a better management system than the whole suit charging thing.
I don't know. I have a bunch of them. I've never played through like from beginning to end of any of the FNAF games. They're too scary for me.
Too scary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like jump scares.
See, they're not scary for me at all. They're just too frustrating. Because I don't know. I don't really get scared by video games. I'm disassociated from it. Like I'm aware that I'm playing a game the whole time. But I do get pissed off at games because to me I see it like a motion puzzle, and like the resource management part, I'll get pissed at myself for failing to do it right. And then I'll just get like really, really angry and I'll put the game down.
Yeah.
I love playing games with people who get fucking scared though. Or I'll watch people who get scared. I like to live vicariously through other people. Like I'll enjoy a horror game more by watching somebody who gets scared by horror games. Cause then I get to like feel their reaction for it. My roommate back in college, back when I was down in Waco, and I played Resident Evil 5 together. And 5 is not really a horror game. Because 4 through 6 are more like action games, and even the spin-offs of this time were more like action games. But there were some things that might scare some people, especially very anxious people. And I would play with my roommate, and we got to the fucking part where the chainsaw guy comes out after you on the oil rig, and he's just like freaking out, running in circles. I'm not looking at his half of the screen at all. I'm just playing, and I'm like, why are you freaking out? He's running at me, and then I see the chainsaw guy coming from behind, and I turn around and I just start running with him, but he's just like screaming the whole fucking time. We come up with a plan too, because we weren't aware that there was 2 chainsaw guys. Like, there's another one that you unlock immediately afterwards. So like, okay, you're gonna run around in circles and distract him, and I'm going to stand over here because I'm a better sniper, and I'm just gonna shoot at him every time he passes by. And eventually we whittle him down, and he goes down and dies, and we go to unlock the other lever, and a second chainsaw guy comes, and we're out of ammo. I'm like, okay, fuck this, I've got a better idea. And he's still screaming, regardless of what the idea is. And I'm like, okay, you go there, I'm going here, we're both gonna unlock the levers at the same time, and then we're just going to avoid the chainsaw guys and run to the door, because once we both hit the button for the door, it loads into the next scene and those guys disappear.
Yeah.
But like, I love playing games with people like that, or I used to watch him, because he used to stream play Aliens Colonial Marines. I love hearing people just screaming at the top of their lungs because something scares them.
Yeah. That's why I couldn't play past the first chapter of Bendy and the Ink Machine, because it scared the shit out of me. I was like, oh my God, I can't take it.
There's a shitload of cut content from Security Breach, I bet. Yeah. Rad Brad videos in which he plays horror games. Is he the type of guy that screams at the top of his lungs? I just love watching people get scared.
Yeah.
Not even like maliciously either, right? Like, I'm not reveling in the fact that the person is scared and like laughing at them. It's more of like that vicarious feeling. That is the only way I get to experience it, is through another person. So it's actually almost kind of like empathetically, because like I'm getting to experience these emotions through you that I wouldn't get if I was playing the game myself.
Mm-hmm.
I get that for a lot of games, because there's some games I just don't enjoy playing. I don't like playing Minecraft. I don't find it fun. But if like a bunch of my friends are in a server playing Minecraft together and somebody's streaming it, I'll watch. And I'll enjoy Minecraft through people who enjoy it in the same way.
You know what I love watching, especially somebody who really knows how to play really well, but I doubt that I would like to play it, is Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
That is really fun to watch. Like I've watched a couple of, and I've watched a couple of streamers who were not very good at it, and that's not particularly fun to watch. But yeah. I've watched some streamers who are like ridiculously good at it, and they're, you know, to the point where sometimes they don't even, like, sometimes they'll play around where they barely even try, or they fiddle around and, you know, goof around and do funny stuff instead of actually trying to win and stuff, and it's just fun.
Yeah.
If you find a Dead by Daylight stream, check it out, because it's ridiculously fun.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those games that I know I wouldn't enjoy if I tried playing it myself. But yeah. I've watched quite a lot of people play it. I tried getting into games like that, because what was the one I played was Evolve, the whole like team versus monster type game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I kind of somewhat find it fun when I am the monster, even if the odds are stacked against you. But I definitely don't find it fun when I'm on the team. And I think the reason for that is because when you're the monster, everything bad that happens to you is your own fault for not playing well enough, right? Like, you're the only one responsible for what happens to you, even if you're playing against a whole bunch of people. When you're on the team with the other people, you could be doing everything right, but if your team is full of slackers or whatever, then you get pissed at your team. And it's like, I don't enjoy that. If I want to play a team game, I want the odds of the other team also having somebody in the same position that I'm in being the same too. So there might be two of us that are doing what we're supposed to be doing, and everybody else are slackers. But at least I'm not the only one suffering.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those games where when you're on the team of survivors, it's better if you're talking to them, if you know everyone on your team and you can communicate with them all, because you can coordinate and stuff. Because I've seen people try to do it where they don't really know anyone else they're playing with, and it's definitely not as fun. Usually when I see a streamer, like if they don't have anyone to play with, they'll play as the killer. And if they have at least two other people, preferably three, there's four, you play as four survivors, so they usually wait until they have at least two other people that will play with them. So,
yeah, that makes sense. That game sounds like it would be awful with randos,
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, if you don't have anyone to play with, I would recommend being the killer, because then you don't need to coordinate anything.
Yeah, that was my problem with Evolve, especially because this game seems way better balanced from what I've seen. But I was also in the beta, the closed beta for Evolve, so you were not expecting things to be balanced in a closed beta. I hated the way that game was built because it was all balanced about stronger monsters. So there was no point in playing the first three monsters released once monsters 5 and 6 were released or whatever. And the team, the actual players, characters were kind of consistent and even, and they were rebalanced around the monsters to make sure the game was fun. But it's just from playing the monster side, and you would queue up to be either, it was just there was no point in playing the earlier monsters, and I don't know, it got really boring really fast that you always just had to play the new one every single time. And I think during the closed beta there was up to 8 monsters released, because that's how much they wanted at the start of the official launch of the game.
Yeah.
And I hated it. And this game is kind of similar, where each of the bad guys, the horror monsters, have different abilities that they do. There's some that can shadow sneak around, or it just depends on which one you're playing, since they're all real horror villains from movies and stuff like that. It's balanced better to where you can get away with playing any of them, but you really just don't want to play the characters that were introduced earlier in the game. You'd rather play the newer ones because they've got newer, cooler abilities.
Yeah. Well, do you want to hear some news from Sony?
Oh, sure. What is fucking Sony doing?
Well, first off, the free PlayStation Plus games for February, one of them is going to be Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, a Wonderlands one-shot adventure.
Okay, yeah. So
have you heard of that?
Assault on Dragon's Keep was the DLC, the last of the 4 DLCs for Borderlands 2. A while back, they did announce that they were turning into a standalone game so that you could play going into Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a fun game. I really loved it as a DLC.
Yeah. So is it, you say these are kind of like board games or tabletop game?
No. So the way the DLC worked is you were still playing as the characters you played for all of Borderlands 2. But it was a solo campaign where Tina was basically playing a tabletop game called Bunkers and Badasses with the old Vault Hunters, the ones that were still around, because spoiler, Roland died in Borderlands 2 for people who for some reason don't know that at this point in time, out of the 4 originals. So it was her and the 3 that were still around, while the new Vault Hunters were interrogating some bad guys that they are torturing downstairs. And so they're basically playing their version of D&D while the new guys are doing the dirty work. And the whole campaign is you playing as your characters you've been playing the whole game, that you've been leveling up inside the fantasy campaign that she's describing. So while they're playing the game, you are the visual experience that everybody imagines when they're playing a tabletop game. So you're running around and you're doing the normal first-person shooter stuff in this fantasy setting. You can even pick up like rechargeable grenades that are like spells. So you can pick up like chain lightning and a fireball, where after you throw it over time, you'll see like another point come back up. So that's like the magic and stuff. Or you even get a shotgun that shoots out swords that explode into other swords on contact. You know, that's kind of wacky Borderlands stuff. But there's like a whole kind of like D&D style campaign in there that you just play through. It's very fun. There's even like, I don't know what it does. I never bother to look up if it actually does anything. But one of the items you get in there is a pendant that gives you +5 to friendship, which is not a stat that does anything in that game. And I don't know if that pendant does anything as the relic you can equip, but you get it.
Yeah. Can you get a hat of +5 dexterity?
I don't think so. That would be cool if you could, though. That sounds like something that would totally be in that game. But it's fun. There's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah. That was a reference to the Guild, by the way.
Dude, I haven't watched the Guild in years. I think the last time I tried rewatching it was back in 2017, and I watched like 3 episodes and stopped.
Yeah. Once you've seen it all through, doesn't have as much rewatchability as much as Legend of Neil. Man, I've rewatched Legend of Neil.
Back before Felicia Day became really annoying.
Yeah. It was back when I actually liked it. Yeah. So there's also an EA Sports game, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to bother with that one, but then also Planet Coaster Console Edition is the PS5 game of February. But in bigger, well, now that sort of bigger news, but at the same time, it's just a rumor. There's a rumor among analysts that Sony may be looking now after Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard. Sony might be looking to buy Electronic Arts or Take-Two or Ubisoft.
Now, okay, Ubisoft, I'm kind of curious how that acquisition works, because this is international.
They're French, aren't they?
Yes, they are French. Like that, I mean, yeah, that'd be a very weird acquisition, because at this point, Sony is an American company, so that would be an American company trying to buy a French company. EA is American, but
I was going to say, is Sony really American though?
Yes, they are an American company. They've really been an American company longer than most people realize, but officially as of 2016, they had moved their headquarters, their main office, to the United States in California. So it's not even just that they're an American company, but like many things in Silicon Valley, they are a Californian company, which explains a metric buttload of the decisions that Sony has made throughout the years.
Yeah. But let me see, Take-Two.
Take-Two, I think, what are they? Are they even? I think they're like Australian or something.
No, Take-Two recently acquired Zynga, right?
Zynga? I think so, maybe, yeah. Take-Two might be American. I don't know. They're an international company. I don't know where their headquarters are.
But they also own Rockstar.
They own a lot of things. So Take-Two owns 2K, right? That which is a big umbrella of its own. 2K games.
That's different from Rockstar.
Yeah, well, Rockstar, they like publish with 2K games and stuff like that, and they are, I think, under Take-Two. It's a weird big umbrella of things, because 2K was a distributor for the most part, but they have their own games too. Like they do 2K Sports and stuff like that. Gearbox publishes under 2K, right? So like Borderlands is under 2K Games.
Mm-hmm. But Take-Two, it says here, is an American video game holding company based in New York City.
Oh, okay. So they do have their main office here in the U.S. They've got offices everywhere. Yeah. It's always hard to tell with these companies.
But Ubisoft is definitely French.
Yes. Yes, they are.
So that would be interesting. That would be, I think, less likely then, right?
Yeah.
I
think so, because when it comes to like international buyouts, stuff like that, a lot of times a lot of these companies are integrated into the economic structure of the country, so you actually have to get like permission from the country itself. It's like what we were talking about with Nintendo. Even if any of these companies did get big enough that they could buy out Nintendo, and even if Nintendo agreed, Japan, whose economy is very woven in, like Nintendo is part of their economic structure, wouldn't allow a buyout of Nintendo. Now, France as a country operates very differently than Japan. I don't know how that works particularly, but I assume that if France wanted to, they could just refuse a buyout of one of their companies.
Yeah, seems like it would be more complicated. Now, Electronic Arts, based in Redwood City, California, has a revenue of $5.5 billion.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to buy them out. People don't understand how big of a fucking company they are.
Wait. Well, apparently they're smaller than Activision Blizzard. So if Microsoft just acquired Activision Blizzard
was looking for a buyout.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Because of, help save face and everything. EA, while it technically has a reputation, really isn't in a bad place. I don't think they're looking for it. I mean, if the deal's good enough, there's no one's to say that they won't say yes. I mean, most people will take a good enough deal, but the deal has to be good enough if you're not actively looking to like save your reputation or something like that.
Yeah. It's interesting that these were the top 4 video game companies. Activision Blizzard was number 1, followed by EA, then Take-Two, and then Ubisoft.
Yeah.
And now they're all going to get bought up. But yeah, I mean,
I don't like the idea of these companies all getting bought out. Even the ones like I have a lot of issues with most of these big companies. Right? They've been the prodding points for years. But at the same time, I like the fact that every company isn't just coagulating into one. This is like the video game equivalent of Demolition Man's Fast Food Wars, where everything just ended up being Taco Bell by the end.
Yeah. Apparently, Phasmagour did not know that Ubisoft was French.
yeah. Most people don't, apparently. Just weird. I don't know. I guess because we're very integrated into like the video game like development side of culture and stuff like that. Like I've been paying attention to that shit for years, even watching like interviews and stuff like that. And you see like the Ubisoft people, especially Steep. Steep was a game that I was really looking forward to. I enjoy a lot. The Ubisoft proper people are talking about their experience actually mapping out the French Alps and stuff for the game, which their offices aren't too far from the base of one of the major mountains in the Alps.
Yeah. Well, I found out, so we've talked about how I was obsessed with the Settlers series. Yeah. The Settlers was created by a company called Blue Byte, and they got acquired by Ubisoft at some point. And when that happened, I looked into it, and I was like, oh, they're French. I had no idea. So that's how I found out that Ubisoft was French, because of the Settlers. I don't know if Blue Byte was French. I guess it was.
Rayman comes from France.
Or no, Blue Byte was based in Germany. That's interesting. They actually are still based in Germany, but they are owned by Ubisoft.
Well, that's one of the cool things. So Ubisoft bought a lot of different European companies out, but because the fact that the EU as a trading bloc has existed for quite some time now, it was easy for them to just keep offices where they were and economically still just be like entwined with itself. You can have subsidiaries in other neighboring countries, and it doesn't matter whatsoever.
Yeah, they all still use the euro or whatever.
And they also all still have like joint taxes and stuff like that, because you have like your country tax, but then there's also like a small tax that goes to the union and stuff. So as far as like operating a business, it's really not a problem. I know of a lot of people that have businesses that are scattered throughout the EU.
Yeah. But that would be interesting. You know what that would mean if Sony bought Electronic Arts is that they would own Ultima.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wonder, and Ultima Online, which is still running, by the way. By the way, I found out that my friend Zoggins is and has been the governor of, I want to say, Vesper on his shard for like 6 or 8 years. I was like, you can be a governor of a town in Ultima Online? He's like, yeah, I've been a governor for like 8 years. He's like, I run every year, but I run unopposed every single year. Apparently you can do things like he has the town coffers, and you can get boosts and boons and stuff in your city and stuff like that.
This is actually something I was complaining about 14 recently, and just modern MMOs in general, because you start looking at older ones. Ultima Online is one of the oldest MMOs there is. We look at some other old ones like, say, RuneScape, and a lot of these older ones, the storyline or quest line was not the most important part of the game. It was something that was there for people who want to do it, but you could basically play the games forever without ever completing the quest line, because a lot of these older ones were actually built around the idea of the social structure of an MMO.
Yeah.
So a lot of them even gave you things like something like that. You could run for a political office of a town or whatever, or you could literally just be a miner your entire life doing nothing but mining, and even have like a combat class escort you to the mine or whatever. Like, it actually gave incentive for these social structures that don't exist in modern MMOs.
Yeah, I just found this out like this past weekend, because he was having his monthly, I had never seen him do this, but he has monthly town hall meetings because he's the governor of the town, and they have these meetings and they actually discuss things, and they discuss, what's our income, what do we have in our coffers, what boon do we want to add or subtract, and all this. I was blown away. I was like, I had no idea you could do any of this stuff in Ultima Online.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that you could actually run a town. And he's like, oh yeah, I've been a governor of Vesper for like 8 years. It's like, what?
And I think the cool part about that is because it's such an old game.
Yeah.
And the population is so stable. Like, you don't really have new people coming to play Ultima Online, that you can still do stuff like that, and money, like real world money, doesn't come in to interfere. Because another game that let you do things like that, kind of old at this point, I would say it's like a midlife MMO, is EVE Online, right? Like, I think at this point most people would call that an old game, but it's nowhere near as old as, say, like Ultima or even like early RuneScape or anything like that. But like EVE, everybody knew that game for being the one where you could basically do whatever you wanted in it, right? Like, you could start a trade route, you could basically do anything. But the problem was real world money got involved in it, and it started having its own economic system that started pushing out the more social players that weren't involved in like the internal economic flow.
Well, I just thought that was cool. I wonder, I mean, obviously we have no idea if it's going to happen, but if Sony bought EA, would that have any effect on the Ultima IP? Would it be more or less likely that they'd, actually be willing to license it to a Richard Garriott or someone? So,
I don't know. That's a good question. And I don't know at this point which one that would be more likely under, whether Sony or Microsoft buying it would be more likely to.
Well, it's not going to be
stuff.
Well, I mean, I think that I don't know if Microsoft is thinking about it. I mean, Sony or the current EA team would be the choices.
Yeah. See, I don't think the current EA would definitely have to be if they got bought by somebody. I know Sony would be the one looking for it. I just don't know how likely it is Sony would do something like that. Because I'm looking at all these purchases, and I see Microsoft purchase something, and I don't think it's very likely an old IP gets resurrected, but there's like a chance. Like, especially if there's enough desire. When I see Sony buy something, though, I think it's even less likely an old IP gets resurrected than if it gets left the way it is currently.
Yeah. Especially with Sony being bought lately. Just,
And
just
if they do resurrect
different policies about.
Do you think it's even going to be in a way that you want to play it? Like the
restrictions
they put on the
gonna be all
and stuff?
Censored and shit.
Yeah.
It's like, how is How are Microsoft and Nintendo the ones far less censored than Sony?
Well, the thing is, Microsoft's barely, right? They're usually trailing behind, following whatever Sony does.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of pushback recently, but then they talked about the cross-platform censorship shit.
Yeah. It's just funny that Nintendo's now just like, whatever, we've got hentai on our eShop, no big deal.
I mean, okay, to be fair, Nintendo's kind of always been this way. They just never had the infrastructure. Because all they care about is that their games have their identity. So Nintendo is going to be mostly family friendly. Maybe they'll jump into like the T section by American standards, but even
they were the ones that
like games that are T are still like an E rating in Japan because there's different what's it called?
But they're the ones that censored Mortal Kombat back in the day, though.
Now, but what we're doing is we're comparing them to Sega as their alternative and not the current companies, right? Like if we're comparing them to Sony and Microsoft, they've actually always been looser on other people's stuff than Sony and Microsoft has been. They just never had the infrastructure for the third-party support that as long as people properly rate it, it can be the way it is. As far as I know, Resident Evil 4 was actually untouched when it was finally ported over to the GameCube because it was rated properly. But if we're comparing it to Sega, Sega was the loosest of all people. Like they weren't having anything basically censored, but there really wasn't much to censor back then aside from like blood and Mortal Kombat or whatever. And that was also, we have to think, that was before there was a proper rating system, right? So Nintendo also loosened up once there was a rating system because what they cared about was the kids. Because Mortal Kombat is one of the games that introduces this rating system. After the rating system comes in, well, now we've got something where we can keep games that we don't want in the hands of kids away from kids because it's up to the parents.
Yeah. But Sega had, like, Conker's Bad Fur Day, right?
No, well, that's rare. And actually, Conkers was on the Nintendo 64.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. We're talking about games. Like, people like, Nintendo's always been uptight. It's like, no. Once we had the rating system, they actually loosened up a lot when it came to that stuff. Conker's Bad Fur Day was on the Nintendo 64.
Right.
If you want to think about games that have been around.
Yeah. There was some cleavage in that, I believe, if I recall correctly.
Shit jokes. There were some sexual innuendos in the actual dialogue and stuff like that. And it's a game that most people probably wouldn't want in the hands of their kids. Some people would be fine with it. I personally probably wouldn't mind if I sat down with the kid and played it. Like, I don't know if I would just let them play it by themselves. But as a parent, if I sat down with the kid and played Conker's Bad Fur Day, I probably would have no problem with it. I've played the game before. But it definitely is not a child-friendly game, with quotation marks around that.
Yeah. Well, check out Common America issue 5.
If you feel like you need to sweeten your tooth on Common America, which I also do personally recommend as a story, you can go to Webtoon, and there is a Common America like little web shorts mini series that gets updated like once a week by Tim Lim. Really good. It'll sweeten your tooth and it'll convince you to actually buy the comics. Because they're like prologues and like mini things that aren't in the comic story. There's supplementary material that will make you want to read the full stuff, including little stuff about like where Common Ramen comes from, which is a character that shows up in the recent stuff. You see her little backstory and everything. So I highly recommend that.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's it for the show. Yeah, we've made it to the end. Thank you guys for showing up. If you enjoy the show, please share it with somebody else who may enjoy it. And if you really like it, consider giving a donation to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live. Really helps us out in many ways, including paying for our hosting fees and also, helping me save up for other shit that I need, like a new scanner. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye. Have a good one.